KUCR, University of California, NAMM 2019. We're sitting here with Nick Batt of Sonic State. Nick, it is 2019. How many of these have you been to? And then I'll amaze you about how many I've been to.
I think this is number 19.
I've done over 25.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I just keep coming every year, and if I felt that if I didn't come, I'd miss out on a lot of stuff, because there is a lot of stuff at the show. This is really worth coming to, don't you think?
I do. I mean, it's still the biggest. I mean, it's still the show that. I mean, for us, it's not only about products, but from a business point of view, it absolutely makes sense. I mean, you can see things are changing, though. I mean, the synth community seems to be moving to sort of smaller events, and maybe some of the indie people are kind of thinking, well, because it's expensive for everybody to come and do a big show like this. Maybe
last year Moog wasn't here, and I don't think they're here this year. I haven't seen.
I think they've got a meeting room somewhere.
Yeah. Even Behringer has taken a hike.
They haven't done it for a while now. I think they've just stopped doing trade shows. But they've got a place uptown. I don't know exactly where it is, but one of our guys went up there at the beginning of the week and shot some stuff. So
you're an artist, and you're also a journalist, and you cover and review synthesizers. Which do you prefer? What is the mode of Nick Batt that you like being in the most, as an artist or as a journalist coming to events like this?
Well, I mean, events like this, there isn't really time for any creative stuff, because it takes a lot of planning and organising, and everything's a bit of a rush to try and get the stuff online. So here it's, I suppose it's journalist or logistics, but I enjoy doing the interview, the behind the camera stuff in this, because that's what I am doing. So the interaction there is kind of more fun than sitting and editing.
Well, I've praised you before on one of these discussions, and I still think that you do the best job. And I think possibly because you come at it from an artist's perspective, and you draw out of the product the cool part that I key on.
Well, that's what you try. I mean, in terms of reviews, I mean, that's exactly it. You have to use it until you find something that you can emotionally connect to. It sounds a bit kind of arty-farty, but actually, if there's some sort of emotional connection with an instrument, it makes it much, much easier to then to say, hey, this is cool. I mean, maybe why is this cool? I don't know, but this feature, even though it's missing or not implemented very well, listen to this. It's still got something about it. I mean, we ultimately, I want to say positive things about musical stuff. I mean, I don't enjoy criticising things, and sometimes if you have a product that's there are too many faults, I would rather not say anything about it at all and just get back to the manufacturer and say, hey, you know what, I think this needs a bit more work.
As a consumer of your reviews, I can sort of sense when you're not enthusiastic or you don't say certain things. I understand what that means, but one of a prime example of what I'm talking about is the Dreadbox.
Which one?
Well, the entire.
Oh, yeah, no, I do. I enjoy the Dreadbox stuff. I think the last thing I've reviewed of theirs was the Erebus 3, which is a great synth. But before that, it was the Medusa, which is a different thing, and it didn't quite have the same Dreadboxness that the others.
I picked that up.
Yeah, but it's still a great kind of thing. It's just not pure Dreadbox.
I think that's one of the great values of your show, is that you sort of curate what you're putting on there, and it's most everything on there is really good. What inspired you to start Sonic State? And by the way, we're talking about sonicstate.com on YouTube.
Well, it started way before YouTube. The video kind of ended up being an obvious vehicle for reviews, because writing about sound is a bit like kind of, it just doesn't seem like you're going to get all that much of what you need from it. So it came through necessity, really, and also the ability to improvise rather than plan anything. When you can speak reasonably fluently about something, then it will just come out of you, and then you go, oh yeah, that was okay. And what is it that started it out, though? I mean, really, like I say, it started on the web first, and it came from a desire to have a much shorter creative cycle. So I do something, I publish it, and it's there. It could be a matter of hours, it could be a day, it could be a few days. But in terms of music, a lot of time, you could spend a lot of time in the studio sort of wondering about whether the hi-hat part is okay, and you can get a little too macro, and something, if it's an album project, it can last maybe a year, and that creative cycle is very long, and I find that I prefer just to sort of do something and have it out there. Was that okay or wasn't it? I mean, I guess it's a quicker route back to my own ego, so I can tell whether or not, people like it or not without waiting too long.
One of the things that I've noticed is that, I don't know if it's intentional or it just happened, but you've kind of created a Top Gear of music, the music industry and equipment, because you have these a kind of a cast of characters, and genuine characters on the show. How did you meet these guys, and how did they get on the show?
It's interesting. It's very organic. I mean, really, that's, I wish I could say it was a grand plan, but, and I go and search them out, and there's a really funny story about, how it's not really. It's usually somebody goes, I know somebody who'd be interested, or somebody gets in touch and say, I'd really like to be on the show, and I'll maybe get a sense of how they are. And, I think because the people who want to be on the show generally watch the show, they kind of get what it's about. This is the Sonic Talk podcast that we do. So it makes... It's sort of self-filtering. Somebody who's maybe really straight, not very funny, and not very good at speaking fluently would probably not ask to be on the show. When
I compare it to Top Gear with Clarkson and all the characters, does that kind of resonate with you?
Not really, but I mean, I'd love that sort of level of success. I mean, I know what you mean, though. There's a level of banter and kind of humour that's the other thing. It has to be fun. If you get the wrong mix of guests, sometimes it can be very dry. If nobody's very funny or very animated, then it's like I have to do a lot of work, and it's easier if there are people who are just likely to throw something completely out there into the mix, and you end up in a place that's kind of more fun. And I think everybody, ultimately, it's people are following a conversation amongst a set of characters that are talking about things that they're interested in. But all it is really a chat. There's not really very much structure to it.
You have a nice presentation with a show that you do, a live show every week, and then you have features, and you do a thing on Fridays where you're kind of improvising on synths, which I enjoy. But where is it physically located? Is this in your house, or?
No, we have an office in Bath. It's above an Italian delicatessen warehouse. And it's I don't know. What is the size? It's like 5 by 8 meters, the main room, and there are rooms off it. So the studio is all there. I mean, it's a purpose. It was not purpose built, but it's the space is we've made it into what we need it to be.
Since you began doing the program, other people have come in and done similar types of program. Do you view them as rivals or colleagues, or how do you view them?
I mean, it depends on what they're doing. I mean, sometimes I would see them as rivals if they're directly, but I think the thing is, most people, either they're working for somebody else, so it's a part of a publishing thing, or it's maybe attached to a retailer, so there's an agenda before they even start doing their thing, or they're individuals and they just do their thing, and that's totally cool. But it's quite rare to have just somebody who sort of improvises in that sort of way. I mean, there's room for everybody. I don't have a problem with it. I guess if people are unpleasant to me, then I might kind of think, well, that's okay. Maybe we're rivals then, and we need to, I don't know, not cooperate. But I think there's plenty of room for everybody.
I just want to go to the subject of NAMM for a minute, because every time I come here, almost every day I come out of the hospital.
Yeah, it feels like yourself. Maybe just go to the hospital.
I do, the hotel, and come to the show. I'm dazzled by the scale and the size of it, and also the planning and all the details. I mean, do you have that kind of reaction to just, this is an amazing show?
It is an amazing show. I become kind of fairly monofixated because all the details and the planning and stuff, from our point of view, for making this happen, to cover it, is also hugely kind of time consuming. I mean, I start planning this in like September, but not because it takes that long. It's because I don't want to do it in a very short period of time, because the stress levels, if you leave everything to the last minute, if I started planning in November, it would be like, oh crikey, it's all too much, and it kind of tends to ruin Christmas if I leave it too late. And there's my family and other people that I don't want them to have me stomping around the house stressing about NAMM every Christmas.
We're coming 40 miles, and it's still a great deal of planning that we do to bring our crew and everything. But in terms of what you've seen at the show this year, do you see any trends in the industry?
It's hard to say, really, because there are less sort of pure synthesizer manufacturers here this year. I mean, it feels like there's a big show. There's lots of exhibitors. Trend-wise, yeah, I'm not sure if I've spotted anything yet. That's caught me a bit on the hop. I think it's more about an iteration. I think there's less totally brand new, groundbreaking. But it goes like that. You have cycles, don't you? You have a leap in technology, and then iterations of that technology, and then a lull, and then something else comes along. And I don't think we're probably in a period where we're all responding to a massive kind of new breakthrough in technology just at the moment. Certainly not in electronic music. I mean, there's a lot more digital. I think digital is becoming a bit less of a dirty word in synthesis.
And I think the prices are coming down in some areas. You see that, but I think in terms of a few years ago when Roley came out with the Seaboard, that was I think very significant, and there were a number of interfaces. But you're right. It is like a iteration of products. I haven't really seen anything special here.
Brand new special, perhaps not. I mean, I really did you see the Panopticon?
Yes, I did, and I can guarantee you I would love to play with it, but really have no use for it.
No, I just. That's what I love about NAMM is, I mean, it's kind of a ridiculous idea, but it's beautifully made, and the guy who made it is a lovely, lovely fellow.
It's a labor of love.
And I like seeing that kind of stuff,
By the way, I haven't seen it yet, but there's a new Waldorf synthesizer that I think, wasn't that some guy made that a couple of years ago, and I interviewed that guy, and now they have licensed it? Is that what's happening?
I think he did a deal with them, and they've finished making it, but it's here, but it's not been voiced or anything, and it's quite a complicated instrument. I mean, we tried to film something, and one of the guys at KUCR was really up for it, but then when he came to it, it was just all init patches. And I didn't, one of the things that we're also conscious of is, somebody who's not prepared to do an interview maybe might think, I can just wing it, but sometimes you do need preparation. Otherwise you can crash and burn pretty bad, and the internet can be a brutal place, and I sort of said, no, let's not film this, because I don't think it'll improve your life. Yeah, but I think the synth itself is going to be good. It's just not ready. It's just you can see it. I mean, it was working, but it's just not ready.
Let me throw out some products that get your impression. So last night, the Tech Awards, Dave Smith Instruments won for the Prophet X, and I really like that.
I do too. I mean, I think it's one of those things that feels quite expensive, and unless you actually put your hands on one and play with it, you might not get the vibe of it. You would say, oh, this is wrong for me, I couldn't possibly spend this much money, or it's only got this or that or the other. But actually when you play with it, it is a very inspiring piece, so I can understand how that might work. Yeah.
What about the Akai Force?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting product. I think I don't know whether it's going to be as big as it promises, but I think the notion that you can do that kind of stuff in a standalone hardware thing you almost think I need a reason to want this. I mean, I want it, but I can't think why. I can't justify it.
Like, I want to buy it just so I can figure out what the reason is that makes me want to buy it.
It's one of those things. I mean, they made a very desirable thing. I mean, it's not cheap, and a laptop running maybe Ableton Live will do as much, if not more. But there's something kind of cool about the fact that it's all self-contained in some respects, and also it will control live incredibly well. So.
I had mentioned to you, we're speaking with Michael Boddicker earlier, that I'm very impressed by Christoph Kemper. What do you think about him?
He's a smart guy, but he probably needs to do some more work on synthesizers. The world seems to be missing him, don't they?
I have to say, every time I interview him, I mention because I have 3 Virus synthesizers, and I think they're very musical, very wonderful. And I think I read something online where the chip that powers it is no longer available. But I asked him about that yesterday, and he said it's available.
Yeah, well, they made a sort of limited run, didn't they, of the Virus Snow TI, or I can't remember which model it was, and they sort of, but it's, yeah, I think basically the bottom line is they make more money out of the guitar stuff, because Kemper has become the thing that you find in every studio. They really sort of took over that kind of boutique amp thing, and people rave about it. And you can also, take your broken old whatever it is and profile it, and then you don't have to take that on the road, or you might be able to get it fixed, but you've still got the sound of when it was broken. I mean, there's all sorts of possibilities there, but I
think it's a wonderful creative tool. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a guitarist, but I mean, from what I've heard and what I've seen of it, it's an impressive thing.
Well, I'm getting the sense that I've taken a lot of your time. It's the last day of the show, and I think one of the reasons that this is such this feels like an easy conversation that it could go for a long time is that we're both really wiped out.
Yeah, it's tiring. I don't feel I've still mostly got my voice. It seems to have come back to life, but we've still got stuff to do. We've got to hand out some awards. We've got to, I've got a bunch of things to do.
Could you tell us who you're citing this year?
Well,
this won't be out until after.
I think I'm going to give the Poly synth to the Minilog XD, which may not be all that exciting a concept, but I think it sounds great. I really can't wait to get my hands on it. I think maybe the mono synth is probably going to go to the Arturia Micro Freak. Yeah, Micro Freak. Aside from that, I have to go back and check my list. My memory's shot, and I don't have a piece of paper with it written down in front of me.
All right. So tell the viewer why people should watch to go to Sonic State and watch your reviews.
Well, if you're into synths and you're into electronic music or music production of any kind, and you're kind of like a more informal style, hopefully it will give you some information. It's just informal. Then come on over.
Nick Batt, sonicstate.com, NAMM 2019.